Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales. As you regular listeners know, we have started a series on Trip Tales called Trip Fails, when a trip doesn't go exactly as planned. It's our way of sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly with each other. From time to time, it's helpful to know when a destination doesn't live up to the hype. I had a few listeners reach out with mini trip fails. They told me that while it wasn't a full-blown vacation fail, they had a story to share that would definitely fit under the Trip Fails series. So today we have 3 mini trip fails. We'll call them Trip Fails Minisodes. So buckle up for the Hilton from Hell, Scammed and Stuck in Orlando, and Great Wolf Lodge Gone Wrong. First up, we've got the Hilton from Hell with my friend Katie. Katie, who also happens to be my high school bestie, was a fun time on episode 40, where we relived my 40th birthday girls' trip to Mexico. So welcome back to the podcast, friend.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
So I live in the Chicagoland area. We live in the southwest suburbs in a town called Frankfort. I actually work for an advertising company downtown, but only have to really go there one day a week. And I work in the HR department. And I am married with 2 awesome boys, Calvin and Brady, and they're about 6 and 5 years old. So exciting times.
Yes. And they were on this mini trip fail, I believe, your family of 4.
Yep.
So let's get into your mini trip fail, which takes place at what sounds like a cute boutique hotel called the Kingsley in ritzy Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. So set the scene for why you booked this hotel in the first place.
Yeah. So we have family up in the Detroit area, specifically around Royal Oak. And I actually used to live up in that area right after graduating college. And so Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, Royal Oak, Troy area, it's a really nice upscale area, Bloomfield Hills specifically. And so in my search and trying to find a hotel, we were looking for an indoor pool because it was November when we went. And, I thought, let's splurge a little bit. Let's stay in Bloomfield Hills because, like I said, Bloomfield's kind of a ritzy area. So, basically went out, searched, found the Kingsley. It looked like it had been it kind of looks like a split level hotel. So online, I could tell it was an older hotel that had been redone. But by the pictures, it looked super fancy, very boutique, chic, modern. And it was only about 5 minutes away from my family was staying. So I felt like, sorry, where they lived. So I felt like it was kind of the perfect match.
It's definitely tricky because I looked up this hotel as well, and the website is simply thekingsley.com. Like it's actually the standalone boutique hotel. It has gorgeous imagery of the hotel lobby, and the website reads, dramatically transformed and reimagined, the Kingsley Bloomfield Hills pushes boundaries and surpasses expectations as Southeast Michigan's newest iconic hotel. Arriving guests are greeted by a geometric facade of stone, glass, and sculpture brimming with Rat Pack swagger that recalls the hotel's calling card as the it place to be since 1958. And also, when you do a quick Google search, Google shows up that it has 4.5 out of 5 stars from Google reviewers. But when you switch the reviews to see most recent, the story changes a little. And before we get into your whole trip fail, I've actually seen this happen myself. We had to book a hotel in Birmingham, Alabama for a soccer tournament. Same thing, quick Google search, landed on the Redmont, which was a boutique seeming hotel, gorgeous imagery on the website. But it ended up being this like DoubleTree by Hilton, which is what your hotel actually is. When you finally click through and like go to book, you're actually booking a DoubleTree by Hilton, but it's called the
Yeah.
Kingsley. So anyhow, Hilton's doing something crazy with these boutique hotel names where the website actually, you're not even on Hilton.com at first.
Yep.
It's just kind of confusing. Okay, so tell
Yeah.
us about getting there and checking in.
Yeah. So we arrived kind of late. I for sure had a reservation early on, so it wasn't like I booked day up, but we arrived around 11 p.m. And
Because you're
when
driving up to Michigan from Chicago.
yeah, we had
Yeah.
6 hours on the road, two young kids. It's 11. The kids are like half asleep, half awake, and of course they're starving. And
Yeah.
so we pull up, and as soon as we walk in, it was awesome. It was like hopping in there. They definitely, because it's in Detroit, it seems like a destination for families who are in hockey tournaments because there were tons of hockey players everywhere and having young boys. They were all like, this is so cool. There's all these big kids with, all the sporting equipment and stuff. The lobby smelled like fresh baked cookies. And then you looked past the lobby, and there, like I said, it's kind of a split level hotel. Down below, you could kind of see this really cool kind of loungy game area. And the kids were like, this is so cool. And again, it's 11 p.m. So I'm like, that's cool for tomorrow morning, but we
Yeah.
need to like get to our room. So we check in. They were like, "Oh, we only have 2 rooms left. Like you just made it." And I was like, "Oh, no, I don't like when they tell me that because then you're getting like what's left over, but it's fine." I
Yeah.
was
But
like,
you're also like, we were coming.
yeah,
So
I had a reservation.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had that happen before too, where they're like, and we only have a king. And I'm like, well, we have 4 people staying in a room. So let's work together on how we're gonna make this successful. So we were able to get we booked a 2 queen. And I will say, just a quick tangent on pricing. When we booked, the rooms were retailing around 180. So I would consider
Great
that like
price. Yeah.
pretty, like anything under 200, I think that's like a very doable price. And so we check in and go to our room. And we had already unloaded the car and everything. So we go to the room. And as soon as we open the door, this like intense smell just hits you. And it smells like body odor, like hardcore body odor. And
Ugh,
Darren, my
gross.
husband, turned around and looked at me and he was like, do you smell that? And I was like, yeah, that is really bad. Is it just like right when we walk in the door? But then we stepped in and like the whole room smelled like body odor. And I was like, this is a no-go for me. But in the back of my brain, I was like, shoot, I think there's only one more queen bedroom, double queen still open. So Darren went back out. He talked to the front desk, and the woman came down and she said, oh, okay, no worries. She was like, that's very strange. We'll actually take you to the next room, and we'll check you in there. And we were like, okay. So she went down and she unlocked the room. And before she unlocked the room, she said, we had a family check in here earlier, but actually didn't stay because they thought the room smelled like weed. Also, why are you telling me this? And my kids are like, what? So
She's
then,
like, your choices are body odor or weed. Those are
yeah,
the scents we have to offer at this hotel
exactly.
tonight.
I'm like, where's my lavender?
Yeah. Where's my
Um,
pillow menu?
yeah. So then we walk into the next room, and I'm like, it really smells like weed in here. And I said, do you have any other rooms? Not one other room, not even a king, nothing, like no other rooms available. And I mean, like I said, the hotel was very busy when we showed up, so I'm not surprised by that. So I said, I mean, I guess it's not, I can't even believe I lowered my bar to this, but I was like, I guess it's not that bad. And so I just was like, I guess we can do it. Let's like open up the window and we'll keep the door open for a little bit. We'll air it out. So she was like, I'll get some Lysol too. So then she runs to the front desk, comes back, and then sprays the entire room with Lysol. The kids are choking and
No,
coughing. I
that's
had to like
worse.
put them
Now
out
we
in the
have
hallway.
chemicals.
I'm like, now I'm high and
Yeah.
like poisoned.
At least
So
weed's like a natural substance. We don't need the
yeah,
Lysol chemicals. Oh my gosh.
yeah. And
And
you
the
guys can
boys are
tell
just
me.
like, what time is it at this point? Are we
It's
moving
like
into?
11:30, eleven
Yeah.
forty-five. They're still just like, are there any cookies left? They're just plowing
Yeah.
through cookies. So and of course, my husband's like trying to like make it all work and just like get everybody and go to bed. And I'm already on my phone looking for another hotel. I'm like, no, this is not happening.
Yeah, and you guys can probably tell from this that Katie is very much like we're going to make this happen. We're going to make this right. And I will speak to who I need to speak to. And Darren, her sweet husband, is super kind and like very calm in these
Chill.
situations. So I can see
Yeah.
that he's like, okay, well, we can work with this.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's just like, let's just, it's almost midnight. We've got 2 young kids. Like, okay, let's just go to bed. And Darren also like he's down for whatever accommodations.
Yeah.
And I usually am pretty chill about that stuff, but I was like, I mean, body odor and weed. Okay. All right, so everybody gets changed. We all get ready to go to bed. Brady's already passed down on one of the beds. We're like pulling back the other bed, and Darren goes to climb in, and he looks down and he was like, he was like, are my sheets dirty? And I go over and look, and in the middle, so if you think about lying on a bed, in the middle of where the middle part of your body would be is a giant pee stain
Oh my
on the sheets.
gosh.
I am like,
Disgusting.
Absolutely not. So at this point, I'm like, it's midnight, and I'm trying to figure out like, do we get everything together and go to another
I just
hotel?
got like
It's gross,
heebie-jeebies.
yeah.
Like you can't like
And
sleep in that.
no, yeah. Well, and I will say, and a small word for our sponsors, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I now only travel in full length sleeved, full pant pajamas so that I can not actually really have my body touch things.
Yeah.
And you can
Like a
imagine.
onesie, like a zip up onesie with
Yeah,
feet.
basically, yeah, yeah. Any of the, Nordstrom, those, they always have like those lightweight silky ones. I love those when they go on sale because I'm like, I stock up on those and that's what I travel in all the time. So Darren goes back down to the front desk. And again, I'm sure he was very lovely and was a little frustrated. He took a picture and he said, "Hey, here's the deal. My sheets are dirty. This is pretty gross. We're going to need somebody to come and make up the beds." Well, as you all know, if you're not at like a large scale hotel at midnight, they do not have any maid service typically on staff. It's usually like an alternate person or a maintenance man. So,
Which I guess I didn't really know that. I just kind of, I don't know that I've needed housekeeping at midnight, but I would assume at any major hotel there is someone there. But then you think about like these smaller, Holiday Inn,
yes,
Hilton, and
yes.
there's like that one person at the desk when you show up at midnight and there's like nobody else working. So I
Exactly.
guess, yeah.
Yeah, it's a maintenance man and basically whoever's manning the desk. Now, if you go, like one time we were at a Four Seasons staying and Brady got a bloody nose and we had to change out the whole bedding. And a gentleman, I think he was maintenance, but he was in full like attire. He did not look like a maintenance man. He came up and flipped the entire bed for us, like down to, the mattress. So
Yeah. But
I,
that's
I
the
knew,
Four Seasons.
yeah, I knew we weren't getting that. That's fine. I just wanted clean sheets because I was
Yeah.
like, I guess we're gonna stay here. We'll have clean sheets. Okay, and Darren was like, when he went down to go talk to them, he kind of said, "This is not really working for us. Like, I think we should get a discount on this." And at that point in time, the woman said, "Well, I can knock off $20." So again, we were at 180, so now we're down to 160. And so he then came back and said somebody's going to come with the sheets. So then a gentleman shows up with the sheets, and we asked for sheets for both beds because I was not confident that either of the beds were clean. And so he brought down, I'm going to call it 1.5 sheet sets. And he kind of handed them to us, and then I had to flip the beds. So again, I also am like, I'm gonna flip this bed, I'm gonna see bed bugs, and then I for
Yeah.
real can't stay here.
The
Like,
mattress pad. You don't want to see the mattress
I don't want
pad
to
of a
see any of it. I don't,
hotel.
yes, again. Okay.
Also,
So
I can't believe they had you do it.
oh yeah, no, they have, yeah. And Darren's like, oh gosh. Now Darren's in the corner on his phone too. And I'm like, I will flip the beds, it'll be fine. So I go to flip the beds and he brought me 4 flat sheets. Sorry, 3 flat sheets. He didn't even bring me another flat sheet for the other bed. So I called down to the desk and I'm like, hi, we need 2 fitted sheets. We got 3 flat sheets. And she said, "Oh, we don't have fitted sheets." Okay, I'm still in my pajamas at this point, and I said, "I will be done in a moment to talk to you face to face." So I change my clothes. I get my
You
clothes
change
out.
out of your hazmat suit into your
Exactly,
clothes.
exactly. My hazmat pajamas. And I go back down the front desk and I come in hot. And I was like, "Hi, I know that you have fitted sheets because I just took dirty fitted sheets off of the bed." And she was like, "Oh, yes, I know. Well, we do have fitted sheets, but we don't have any available right now." And I said, "You have a completely booked hotel with, I know on hand, at least 2 sets of extra pairs of sheets for all of these rooms, and you do not have fitted sheets clean right now." And I said, "Oh, wait, I don't even know why I'm asking that question because my husband just found pee stains on his sheets. So of course you don't have clean sheets." And so I said, "And also, I think that you offered my husband a discount on this. So, 2 things. I need an additional flat sheet because you didn't even bring me enough for 2 beds. And secondarily, I need a contact to your manager and I would like a deeper discount. If not, this room comped for free." And she was like, "Whoa, lady." And I was like, "You are a hotel, and the basic needs that you are supposed to meet is a place for me to sleep in a clean bed and potentially shower if I need to. And you have not met 50% of that. So that would equate to me to at least a 50% discount." And so she then said, "I can't do anything. I will take your name." I gave her all my information. And then I went back down to the room. The gentleman delivered the sheets. And then I made up the beds. And essentially, we went to bed and slept there, unfortunately for myself. But I had my hazmat suit pajamas, so I felt safe.
Oh my. Hey, Trip Tales listeners, I'll keep this short. If you're loving the podcast, leaving a review or buying me a coffee is the quickest way to show your support, and it will ensure that these amazing trip stories keep coming. Leave a review wherever you are listening to this podcast, or buy me a coffee at the link in the show notes, and I'll literally do a happy dance when it comes through. Okay, back to the show. Gosh. Then you wake up, and how many nights were you supposed to stay there?
I was supposed to stay there just 2 nights. This was just a quick weekend trip.
Okay.
So the next morning we wake up. I didn't think about this the night before, but I didn't even think to ask for clean towels. And again, we went into the restroom and I did not feel like even the towel situation, maybe they were clean. It just didn't seem perfect to me. And I was like already done with this place. So we basically just got dressed and we said, we're going to go check out. And so then we went back to the front desk, and the manager wasn't there but had checked in. And so I found out that we did get a deeper discount. So they discounted us down to 120, which still wasn't, we should have gotten a full comped room. But again, I was there to see family. We had our kids. If I didn't have children, I would have fought it and I would have stayed and talked to a manager and I would have pushed for a comped room. But we needed to get on the road. So we actually did check out. And of course, there's a no cancellation day of. And so I took the kids out to the car, and then my husband stayed back, and he basically said, "You are canceling this next night, and we are not paying any fees or anything for it." And they did completely cancel that second night for us. And so then we were able to leave and check out. And then they sent me about 20 emails following up on like how my stay was. And I gave like a pretty bad review through some, not publicly on the site, but like through this like survey system. And then that was basically all I did. I didn't fight it too much. I mean, I just didn't have the passion for it. But that was, I have stayed in one other place where I did find a bed bug. And this is the second worst place I've ever stayed in on a trip, ever. That's including hostels in Europe.
Well, I did look at the Google reviews, and we talked about this on a previous episode, but now Google reviews are sorted by most helpful. They're not sorted by most recent. And so on the other episode, we were talking about how when you're looking at a hotel, you've got to switch to most recent to see what people are saying in real time. And I had to copy and paste a review that I thought would really validate your feelings about the Kingsley. So this was just a month ago on Google reviews. This guy gave it a 1 out of 5. And I just have to read his review because it's hilarious. And I feel like you're going to resonate with this a lot.
Love them.
He wrote, I cannot overstate how utterly horrific my experience at the Kingsley was. They quite literally ruined my wedding day. Weeks in advance, I was assured that I would have a room available for early check-in at 8 a.m. so my wedding party and I could prepare for the big day. To be absolutely certain, I even called the day before to confirm, and yet again, I was assured the room would be ready. But when I arrived, not only was the room unavailable, but the staff seemed completely indifferent to the chaos they were causing. They offered no solution, no apology, and acted as though my panic and stress were none of their concern. The lack of care and professionalism was shocking. This wasn't a minor inconvenience. It threw off my entire wedding day. The indifference from the staff was infuriating. They didn't just fail to deliver on their promises, they acted as though they couldn't care less about the torment they were putting me through and my entire wedding party. This is not just bad customer service, it's downright disrespectful. If you're considering the Kingsley for any important event, don't do it. Their assurances mean nothing, their staff is unhelpful, and they clearly have no understanding of how to handle events that actually matter. Save yourself the heartache and go somewhere else.
Preach. Absolutely. I mean, I really, that does really resonate with me because the staff was kind of like, sorry, have some Lysol.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we don't really want to bash hotels. I feel like on these Trip Fails episodes, I'm trying to be careful, but I do think it's important. Like, if someone needs to go to Detroit for something that's a listener and they're like, oh my gosh, I know I don't want to stay at the Kingsley in Bloomfield Hills, I feel like that's helpful information for people.
They have a really good search capability going because it's one of the top hits when you search. So their SEO, SEM strategy seems to be working for them. And because of the way Google filters the results and the reviews, it does seem like a 4-star, highly rated hotel, which that's why in my brain I was like, oh, we're going to splurge and stay at this like fun remodeled hotel.
Yeah, and who has
Um,
time to like dig through tons of reviews? Like usually you're like, okay, generally this looks pretty good. Maybe look at a review or two. Okay, okay, book, and
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
what's going to happen? Well, you have no
yeah,
idea
yeah,
exactly what's on the other side of the reviews.
exactly.
So then what'd you do? Did you guys decide to book a different hotel?
Yep. So then this story ends on a quick happy note, and I'll just give a quick snippet about where we did end up because we actually are going to probably book this hotel again. So we flipped over to the Courtyard by Marriott. Technically, it's in the Detroit, Troy area. It's kind of right between those lines on the map. And I have to say, this hotel actually was amazing. It seems like it would be a great hotel for multiple seasons. They definitely have a nice cafe inside with like some fireplaces. So in November, it was nice and cozy to just kind of check in, get a quick coffee, warm up, and then we were kind of headed out to our activities. But in the summertime, you can see there is a middle courtyard with lots of fire pits and picnic tables and fun areas for kids to kind of play in. And then they have an awesome indoor pool, which that's again why we try to book, a fun hotel with an indoor pool for the kids to swim in during the evening. And the pool was popping and they were having a great time that night. And then, the rooms were very clean. They were very accommodating. We told them where we had come from and they kind of welcomed us with open arms and said, yeah, we've had some folks flip over. So Courtyard Marriott in Detroit was an awesome stay. So check out that one if you're going to be staying in the Detroit area.
Well, and it's like, thank you for just calling it a Courtyard by Marriott, or the other one should probably just be called a DoubleTree by Hilton. So you at least have that baseline of like, okay, this isn't some trend. I mean, I know that they like try to make the decor trendy and cool, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like you said, you want a clean bed and a clean bathroom.
Yeah.
Decor, great, whatever. But at the end of the day, that's really what you want. Even if it's
Yep.
a Holiday Inn or a
Yeah.
Courtyard by Marriott,
Yeah,
clean bed,
exactly.
clean bathroom. That's all you really want.
Exactly. And the courtyard is not fancy, doesn't have frills. It was a little bit more expensive. It ran about 225 a night, but I was happy to pay that for cleanliness.
Well, and they're
Very
like probably because they know what they're worth and that people are
exactly.
switching over in the
Yep.
area.
Yep.
Well, I guess the moral of the story is to sort Google reviews by most recent and also to watch out for Hilton's sneaky boutique hotels that go by a different name, but at the end of the day might just be poorly run Hiltons.
The DoubleTree line specifically, I think, because I've had trouble with DoubleTrees in the past. So
Okay, good to know. Well, thank you for sharing your mini trip fail today. I hope it made some people laugh and also know to steer clear of the Kingsley in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. Thanks, Katie.
sure thing. See you later.
Moving right along to Scammed and Stuck in Orlando with Tali. Tali was also previously on the podcast. She was on episode 11, sharing about her budget friendly trip to Siesta Key, Florida. And now she is back with a mini trip fail. So, welcome back to the podcast, Tali.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So, remind everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
Amazing. I live in Newton, Massachusetts. I live with my wife and 8-month daughter. Her name is Jack Cheryl. And
Congratulations. Last time Tali was on the podcast, she was pregnant, and I actually can't believe she now has an 8-month old.
it's been a whirlwind, but I have to say I've listened to all of your podcasts between then and now. So been dreaming of lots of travel. And my 8-month-old has been to South Africa. She's been to Punta Cana. She's been to about 5 or 6 US states. So we're really taking the travel thing seriously.
Unbelievable. You are a far better traveler with a baby than I was. I definitely went places, but it was very easy, like a Florida trip type thing. So bravo.
She's a great traveler. Just goes right along.
That's awesome. Okay, so today's trip fail is about feeling scammed at the Westgate Lakes Resort in Orlando, Florida. So why don't you set the scene? Why were you headed to this resort in the first place?
I was headed to this resort in the first place, and just for a little bit of context, this was about 7 or so years ago, I think 2018. So if anybody has been there more recently and has a different experience, that certainly possible. But at this time, I was in my early 20s. My younger sister was also in her early 20s. She must have been in college at the time. I was probably in grad school, if not my first year out of grad school, and neither of us was making much money, if any money. And we're on the Northeast, and we wanted a warmer time in Florida. And so my dad said that he would treat us to a little bit of a vacation in Orlando, which was exciting for us. It was the first time me and my sister had done something like that just with ourselves. Obviously, we had traveled as a family growing up. And so I was fairly well traveled in general, but it was also one of my first times being like the oldest traveler and the most in charge traveler. And I was still in my early 20s, so I hadn't had that much solo traveling experience yet.
Love a dad who's like, here, I'm gonna book you a trip. And sweet thing probably got on and was like, this looks like a great option. Just booked it for
Exactly.
you guys.
Definitely good intentions, but it wasn't a resort that I personally had looked up or looked at recommendations for. We had wanted to do one of the Disney parks. It was in Orlando nearby one of the parks. It just seemed like it would be a nice place to go and some sisterly bonding time.
Yes. Okay. So tell us about arriving to this Westgate Lakes resort.
So we were traveling separately, and I arrived first, and my plane arrived at night. And so I took an Uber over to the hotel, and I was the first one there. It had actually been a bit of a chaotic travel day. I won't go into all those details, but I was already arriving a little bit frazzled, and I just wanted to get to my room, figure stuff out, relax, wait for my sister who was going to join me the following morning. And so I get to the hotel and I walk in, and at this point, I'm familiar with hotels. I know that you go to a check-in desk, you go to your room, and somebody greeted me right at the front, and I assumed that that was how I was going to get my key and go to my room. And they took me to a man that was behind a desk. And this man behind this desk, he kept telling me that he was so appreciative of me as a guest and that I was going to come back the following morning for breakfast and I was going to get all these free things. I was going to get a free $100 Visa gift card and I was going to get these other free things. And I just had to pay him a $20 deposit. And I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that something was happening because other times I go check in a hotel, you maybe give your name, they give you a room card, you go on, but they're not giving you all these free things and you don't have to pay a $20 deposit. But I wasn't familiar with exactly what was going on. I just knew that something was going on and it wasn't quite right. So I did ask him a number of times, like, what's the catch? Or how come you're giving people these free things? And sort of what's going on here. And every time he just kept repeating back, we're just so happy that you're staying here. We just want to give you the best trip possible. This is just something that we're saying thank you so much for coming. And like I said, it was nighttime. I wanted to get to my room, and I thought that this was who was checking me in. So I kind of felt like I had to
Yeah, you were
sign
being
up.
like held hostage by him. You're like, okay, I just need my hotel key. I've asked you so many questions. Like, what is
Yeah.
going on? And I also don't, I love that your 20-year-old self had like a good enough gut feeling to be like, something is off, but what is going on? I don't want to give you a $20 bill. Like, I have no money. What is going on?
Right. Exactly. But that's what I ended up having to do. I gave him he told me that if I showed up for breakfast the next morning, I was going to get my $20 back. And so I figured worst case scenario, I've lost $20. Let me just give him this money. And then I had to sign this form, which obviously had a lot of teeny tiny writing on, and I signed it. And he took one part of it, and I took the underneath part where, he gets a copy and I get a copy. And then he takes me to the actual check-in desk. And now I'm confused because I actually thought I was checking in with him, but then I realized that I wasn't checking in with him. So at this check-in desk, I actually do get my room key, and this woman is doing a few more regular things that I would be anticipating would occur at a check-in desk. But my mind is, I'm not even really that focused. Like I'm thinking about what just happened and what's happening now. So she's talking to me, I'm checking in, but I'm not fully present in the conversation. I'm not paying very close attention at this point because there have just been a lot of things that had been going on. So she gives me my room key. She probably tells me what my room number was, and she hands me over to a man who's going to drive me and my luggage to my room.
It like
And
sounds like you're in a foreign country. You're like
I know.
she hands me over to this man who's gonna drive me to my room. It's like, are we in Orlando or what is happening?
I didn't know that I was going to feel this much anxiety traveling alone, as you said, to Florida, a place that I had been to before, an English speaking country that I actually live in, only a couple hours south from where I'm used to. But I was actually really feeling alone and quite vulnerable and anxious
Yeah.
because I didn't have a good feeling based off of what had been happening thus far. And I was
Yeah.
even more eager to just get to my room. And for my sister, again, she's my younger sister. I'm the one that's supposed to be older and more in charge here. But even to just be with another person, I was looking forward to not feeling so alone. But I get in this guy's golf cart. He seems nice. He has my luggage and he drives me, and it's nighttime, so it's dark, and we're driving around. And then he drops me off and he says that this is where I'm staying. This was several years ago, so I don't have the clearest memory if anyone's been there more recently, but it was sort of like stairs, and there were like some rooms on the bottom, and you could climb upstairs, and then some rooms on top of that. And the rooms were also conjoined so that there could be an outer door that you need to get into, and then two inner doors, and somebody else might be staying in one of them and
Okay.
somebody else might be staying in another one of them. So he kind of drops me off, and he goes off on his golf cart back to the front, and I look at my room key that she had given me, and the handwriting was so scribbled that I actually truly could not discern what I was, like where
Yeah,
I was
what room
supposed to be
number
going.
it was? Oh my
What room?
gosh.
It was a room number and a letter, and it would truly could not read it. And then that's when I started to panic just a little bit because, or maybe just a little bit more than I'd already been panicking because I didn't know how to get back to
Right.
where I had just come from. It
You'd
was
been in
nighttime.
a golf cart in the dark.
Yeah, and in the once it was daytime and I figured out how to walk from point A to B, it was super simple. But at this point in time, I was like, were we driving for 2 minutes? Were we driving for 5 minutes? I hadn't been
Yeah, you're like, I
any
would have tipped you, but I already gave my $20 bill to someone else at the front desk.
exactly. And so I actually had to try a couple of room doors before I got into mine. And I just had such a feeling of relief when I was like, okay, I found it. And it wasn't so gigantic. It's not like I was, on a 17 floor hotel with not a single clue. I knew there was an area that I was definitely in, but that was panicky. I had
Well,
to
that's nerve-wracking too, because you're like, I mean, using hotel keys isn't quiet. And so then it's like making that little clicky noise, and you're like worried someone's going to come out and be like, what are you doing? And you're like, sorry, I don't know where I'm going.
I was looking for lights and listening to sounds before I would try doors. So if there was clearly a family in there, I was like, okay, it must not be that one.
Yes,
Like if the lights
yes.
were on and there were noise. But as you said, 100% it was night. Maybe people were sleeping. Maybe someone had put their young kid to sleep and they were just hanging out in the living room or something. I don't know, but I made it into the room, and then that's when I could actually read the sheet because I had the other side of the piece of paper that I had signed, and that's when it became very clear that this was a timeshare situation, which it just hadn't come up at all. This man had had plenty of opportunity to tell me that this was about purchasing a timeshare. I was going to be in a conversation with somebody over breakfast. It was all clearly written down that I'd signed up for like 120 minutes and a tour, and I was
Oh,
going to talk to him about timeshare. And
he
that
never
part
said the
was
words timeshare in that first meeting. Oh my
nope,
gosh,
never
such
said
a
it,
little
not one
scam.
time.
Oh my gosh.
I was feeling really scammed, but I was feeling I had like a purpose now. I was going to beat this scam. I was going to achieve, I was going to win. I didn't know
Yeah.
yet how this was going to play
You're
out,
like,
but
first of all, I'm going to get my $20 back. Second of all, I'm going to get this free breakfast. And third of all, I don't want to be stuck in a meeting for 120 minutes on your precious trip with your sister. You're like, welcome to the trip, younger sister. We have a meeting in the morning.
that's exactly like I met her the next morning and I was like, "Hey, this is the plan." Like
Yeah.
we had a mission. So at this time, I think I've fairly portrayed myself as a person without so much extra cash, I was also not on my own cell phone plan. I didn't have any data. This was a time when I wasn't in Wi-Fi. I could do like one or two Google searches and then I would run out. And this
Yeah.
hotel apparently doesn't have Wi-Fi, but it was one of the things that I was going to earn after this free breakfast. So
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
one of the things that I was going to get, which I was quite excited for, but I spent the limited data that I had Googling these timeshare things, like what to do when you appear in one. And I felt I had this really solid plan, thank you to the internet, that I was going to be okay in this breakfast the next
Did you
morning.
call your dad at all this first night, or were you just like, I'm going to figure this out by myself?
My dad lives in another time zone, which is 7 hours ahead. So I
Okay.
did not. I
Okay.
probably WhatsApped him or something to say that I was there, and I probably did complain. Cannot remember that part of
Yeah.
the trip yet.
Just curious if you were like, did you know about this? But it is hard. These Westgate hotels do operate as, timeshare hotels. And it's really funny. I just have to like put in a little plug because often I talk about how much we love going skiing in Park City, Utah. And we often stay at a Westgate Park City because my parents 25 years ago went to a timeshare breakfast and took the bait, and we had a timeshare in Park City, Utah, which I will say, my parents at the time, and they had three young kids. It was a really good deal for them, and it allowed us to go skiing once a year during their timeshare week. And there were a lot of great discounts at the time. We got 50% off lift tickets, which is, you can't even come by that at all anymore. And it allowed us to go skiing, which is a super expensive trip, at an affordable rate because they decided to do the timeshare. And I've heard that Westgate Park City is one of the nicest of all the Westgate resorts because they would sometimes swap their week, or they'd get points or days. And, the whole, I don't know how it all works, but they would visit other Westgates around the country from time to time because they had points built up or whatever. And every time they stayed at other ones, they were like, specifically an Orlando one, I think it was probably that one. They were like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. This isn't even close to what, like, the same accommodations that we're staying at in Park City. So kind of odd that they've got so many different levels and that the whole thing is this big timeshare scheme. But I just had to put that plug in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I talk about Westgate Park City all the time. And my parents had a lovely experience and they've since sold that and they're done with it. But just kind of funny that, I have a Westgate experience, you have a Westgate experience. And
Yeah, I mean, my general assessment is that if you have a product worth selling, then just be honest about it. And if people want to sign up for it and it's worthwhile to their benefit, they will. But when you have to be this scammy and not forthcoming about it, there's probably something behind it. And that's fantastic that it benefited your family well. And it sounds like it was a slightly different experience in Utah, and maybe they were not misled and they knew what they
also
were
they
signing
weren't like speaking to 20-year-old a 20-year-old girl. That it's like, come on, do you really think I'm gonna buy a timeshare in Orlando? Like,
I
what are
know,
you
right?
doing?
But they like, yes, people
Yeah,
do this. People
they
really,
probably thought that they probably have a quota to meet of like how many timeshare meetings they get or something. So they're like desperate to get these meetings or something. I mean, I'm just making stuff up, but
yeah, it made me feel sad the next morning because the next morning my sister arrives. I'm so grateful to see her. I fill her in a little bit. And we head back to receive our $20 back, which we do, and we go to this breakfast. Immediately, we were quite disappointed by the breakfast. Now we're not foodies. We're not expecting this incredible five-star breakfast, but it was just extremely bad. Like it was way worse than a college cafeteria type
yeah.
breakfast. And so right off of the bat, we were like, okay, like I don't even know if I'm going to eat anything at this breakfast. And again, we're not certainly not the world's most pickiest eaters. It was just that bad. And we meet the woman who is going to take us through this conversation. And right off the bat, armed with the information from the internet, I just say, I didn't know what I was signing up for yesterday. I continued to ask the man. He told me he was just giving me this free stuff because he was grateful that I'm here. I'm here for the free stuff. I'm not buying the timeshare. And no
Yep.
matter what words she basically said out of mouth, I like interrupted her. I just want you to know I'm not buying the timeshare, but I want the free things. And she tried to, oh, I just want to let you know that I'm not buying the timeshare, but I want the free things. And she kept trying to get us, she tried a few times to get us out, like, oh, like if you're not going to buy the timeshare, then why don't you just sort of go. And I was like, oh, because I was promised free things. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna
You're
I'm
like,
gonna
I
sit and
showed
wait.
up to this breakfast. I signed a piece of paper. I'm here. I can play this game too. So I want my Wi-Fi and my other free promise
Exactly.
things.
I sort of remember what I was getting. I was getting 100. I know I got $100 Visa gift card. I was supposed to get Wi-Fi for the resort, and we were supposed to get all the owners' benefits. So at this resort, there was like paddle boats that you could take out to a lake. There was a mini golf. There was an owner's breakfast that they were having in a few days' time. They were just had a few perks that we would have had to pay separately to do if we wanted to take a paddle boat out on the lake. But after doing this, we were going to get all of that at no cost. And it really didn't take long. It was probably between 5 to 10 minutes where she just sort of whispered, she was like, okay, like, don't tell my manager because I'm supposed to kind of do this whole thing with you, but it's not worth my time. So let's just pretend that we did it and you can get the free stuff. And we were out of there pretty quickly. So I was feeling relatively good at this point.
Yeah, good job.
Yes, it like amped me up. I was like, they tried to scam me, this young woman that had come by herself, and I did not get scammed by them, or at least I felt very excited by the $100. And so that was that part of the scam. I'll talk briefly about the place, which was just perfectly average. It again, we were in our young 20s. We were not paying for this ourselves. So I shouldn't be expecting to stay in this luxury place. It had a bed, it worked as a hotel. But if anybody is expecting this really nice Orlando spot, it was just totally fine, nothing that exciting. And we were able to go to the Animal Kingdom, which was something that we really enjoyed, and some enjoyed the warmer weather. We went to the Titanic Museum. But there were just a few other things about Westgate Lakes that continued to make this a bit of a scammy vacation. One of them was the benefits. So the Wi-Fi that I had been so excited to receive, it never worked. It
Ugh.
just never worked. I never at any point was able to connect to Wi-Fi. When you're living with a cell phone without data, Wi-Fi is pretty crucial. And so for this trip, I just didn't have it. So
Yeah, I
that was
remember those days. I remember those days. I remember going to Europe in college and like if you needed to map something, it was like, oh my gosh, the little data that you had is just going to get eaten up so fast. So you'd have to like, it was just a different time where you didn't have like data plans. And it is scary. You feel like you can't use, the device you have to figure stuff out.
And 7 years ago, while that is not so recent, it was still a time where you would expect Wi-Fi in places. It was
Right.
very surprising to me that you had to pay extra for this Wi-Fi. And now that we had received the benefit of the people who were paying for the Wi-Fi, it still didn't work. And so that was one of those experiences where I was like, these people who are actually paying, they're not getting their money's worth. Then we went to that owner's breakfast, but it was advertised as a poolside breakfast for owners. We showed up at the poolside one morning expecting this nice breakfast for owners, and it was like these little Costco sort of mini pastries that you get en masse, and they were just all one flavor of that little mini
Oh my
pastry right
gosh,
outside the
no.
pool.
Owner's breakfast, that should be like hot food and nice
Yeah.
coffee and fresh fruit. Oh my
That's
gosh.
what we were expecting. And I just looked around at these poor people that had like possibly actually paid for this timeshare because in the short period of time that we were sitting in that timeshare breakfast, it was like a cafeteria filled with 50 plus other people like us also sitting there. And every now and again, like you would hear like an applause, like these
Oh
people
my
were actually
gosh.
buying it.
They're like, ring the bell. We got a
Exactly.
new timeshare owner.
Exactly. It was a bit sleazy in that regard, but I just had to look around these poor owners who are probably, I don't know how much it actually costs to own a timeshare. Your parents might know, but there must be some sort of cost to it, and this is what they
Yes.
paid for. We made sure to do everything. We did that paddle boat, we did the mini golf, but it was so it just was not worth any money. It was
Like
like, okay,
lackluster, not that cool, not worth paying extra to get these activities.
I would have been sorely disappointed if I had paid money to have done any of those activities. I could only enjoy them because I knew that we had gotten them for free, and so let's do them. But it certainly
Right.
was not worth any amount of money. Um,
Well, on that same note, real quick, I had read some reviews the other night just to kind of see what people are saying right now. One thing that came up is that people who didn't do the timeshare breakfast, they're still doing that. Um, Felt like they didn't have access to any of the activities at the resort. So, just for listeners, if you were going to go down there and stay here, for your Disney trip or whatever, you can't use the like paddle boards. You can't use stuff unless you go to one of these breakfasts. So, I mean, you could play the game like you did and just get access to stuff, but just kind of know that some of the stuff that the resort might tout, you can't get just as like a regular paying hotel member. The other thing that was so weird, I was looking at the reviews on Google to
mhm.
try to, how you need to sort by most recent to kind of see what's happening because it's auto sorted by most helpful. So I
Yeah,
sort by most recent every single hour for the last as long as you can go, there's a new 5-star review every hour. And so it's like 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And then like you'll scroll and the 20th will be like 1 star. Timeshare activities, not good, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, are they using some sort of a bot service? It just seemed too bizarre that every hour on the hour a 5-star review is coming in. So, anyways, I found that very sketchy. It was very odd. I've never seen anything like that where it's like 7 hours ago, 6 hours ago, 5 hours ago, 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago. So, everyone just like,
that
dig into
seems
those reviews because there's something weird going on where there's a 5-star review every single hour. And then you'll see like a real review pop in that actually is like 1, 2, or 3 stars with real information in it.
that seems very body, yeah, like a robot is doing those. And
Yeah.
again, if you have something worthwhile selling, sell it and people will come. Otherwise, you don't. There was one more experience there that really nailed the coffin of this resort as a really scammy resort, which was that they had a pizza place within the hotel. It wasn't separate. It wasn't like order out to our neighbor pizza place. It was a part of the resort. It was a part of the hotel, all one and the same. And so one of the afternoons, we ordered pizza. You use your room phone, order the pizza. They came, they delivered it. I paid in cash. We were eating the pizza. And then not that long later, maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour or so, I get a call from the pizza place that there was an issue. So they started to ask for personal information like my address and my credit card information. And this is where I was starting to get concerned and that this just didn't seem right. So I told them on the phone that I was going to continue to address this concern at the front desk. I wasn't going to continue to talk to them over the phone.
And was
And they
the
were saying that
concern over the pizza order or over your reservation, like the hotel reservation?
it was around the pizza. I
But you
can't
like
remember
paid
if
in cash. So you're like,
I paid
what
in
is the credit
cash.
card issue?
Exactly. I was saying this over the phone, and I truly at this point cannot remember the exact details of what they were telling me the problem was, but there was some sort of issue that they needed me to address. They wanted my credit card information, and this was not something that I was going to give them over the phone. So I said that I was going to address this at the front desk. And they were saying, oh, the lines at the front desk, they're so long. It's going to be so much easier for you to just address this over the phone with us. And I was like, no, if this is a problem, I'm going to go to the front desk. I'm not comfortable talking with you about this over the phone. Oh, but it's so much easier for you. We just want you to enjoy your stay. The front desk long lines there can be so long. We can just get this wrapped up really quickly. And I hung up on them. When I had checked in, it was nighttime and there was no line at the front desk. So this was also something that I was thinking was just made up and it was enhancing my opinion that this wasn't a real issue, but if it was, I was willing to go sort it out at the front desk. But every time after that my sister and I did walk past the front desk, the lines were actually extremely long, which is not something that I had previously noticed. And then I started to wonder, was there a real issue? Was this not a scam? And maybe they were telling me the truth. The lines are really long. But at some point, after walking back and forth different times during the day, we just decided to wait in the front desk line. And
I
when we
will
got
say
to
one thing. I don't want to interrupt, but that happened at Westgate Park City. It's cleared up now, but back in the timeshare days when we would go, the lines were so long. It was unbelievable. And I vividly remember every time we would show up, it would kind of be this joke. Like my dad would have to stand in this line forever before we could get to our room. So there's something about Westgate and lines too.
another thing that you don't, I've traveled a lot since this experience, and these are not, you walk into a Hyatt, you walk up, they check you in,
Yeah.
like it's pretty
Maybe one or two people's in front
simple.
of you. Yeah.
And when we get to the front, I tell them this issue, and the woman says that she's going to get her manager. And so the manager comes out, and I re-explain the issue to him, and basically told me, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's a scam. That happens all the time. We've heard stories about this." And so I say to him, okay, well, I want you to know that there's somebody working in your pizza place that is scamming people because I ordered the pizza from your pizza place using my room phone, and they called me back from your pizza place to my room phone. And he
Yeah.
was just kind of, oh, yeah, it just happened. He was so dismissive of this issue. And to me, that was the nail in the coffin of this place because the timeshare breakfast, we'd ended up sort of winning out on that. We'd still been able to enjoy the vacation. I had been made to feel really uncomfortable, but it wasn't that bad. Then I sort of felt bad for the owners because once we were using the amenities, I realized they were totally not worth it. But again, that didn't impact me as much. I'm not an owner. But by this time, it's one thing if someone's trying to scam you from the pizza place. It's another thing when you're telling the manager of the hotel that there's an ongoing scam happening in their pizza place. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm glad you didn't give it to them.
Oh my
Good, good. Don't
gosh.
don't give out your information on the phone. That was good. No worries. Move along. And just no real care, no concern. Seemed like it was just this thing that happened that he already knew about, but no desire to actually investigate it or put an end to it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you even more mad. Do you know about the owner of Westgate and the house he tried to build?
No.
Okay. So, the owner of Westgate is this super rich guy that's really into himself to the point his name is David Siegel. Siegel, David Siegel. And at the Park City Westgate Resort, when I went out there growing up, down the main hallway were just photo after photo of him with a celebrity. I mean, hundreds of photos, presidents, anyone he had ever met that was like interesting or notable. There was a professional photo of him over and hundreds of photos of him. Those have since been taken down. My family was like, thank God. So apparently, he's probably made all of his money out of swindling and scamming people at these resorts. There was a documentary made in 2012. I've watched it. You should look it up. It's called The Queen of Versailles. And I'm just going to read this from Wikipedia. The 2012 documentary, The Queen of Versailles, is about the Siegel family, owners of Westgate Resorts, and their construction of a 90,000 square foot mansion. The film also documents the family's financial struggles during this economic crisis. The Siegels' construction of Versailles, one of the largest and most expensive single family homes in the United States, David Siegel's struggle to secure funding for Westgate's Las Vegas high-rise resort, which was called the PH Towers Westgate, and the family's financial challenges as the U.S. economy declines. You can stream it on Prime. Also, you can stream it on YouTube. Queen of Versailles, made in 2012, shows how this family, even though he built all these resorts, was super wealthy, went into economic crisis because he tried to build the largest single family home in the United States, 90,000 square feet. And I believe, if I remember in the documentary, they could never even complete it. Like such a waste of materials, money, because they went into bankruptcy. So that probably makes you feel even more angry at this whole Westgate situation.
Oh my goodness. It doesn't surprise me because it's sort of that type of person that, takes professional photos of themselves with important people and needs to prove their wealth through where is it? The Versailles? Like where did they try to build this?
I think it's in Florida, but let me Google it because I want to make sure. The Versailles house is located in Windermere, Florida. It does say the features of the house: five kitchens, a 150-person dining room, a
Oh.
ballroom, a British style pub, 35-car garage, private jet cabin in the living room. What? Gold adorned ceilings, massive crystal chandeliers, and an elevator.
So my wife's mother lives in Windermere,
Oh
Florida.
my gosh.
And so we do come back to Florida at least once a year. That
Oh
man,
my gosh.
I'll see if I
You'll
can
have to
find it.
watch the documentary and then go drive by this. It's probably, I think
Yeah.
it said it's in a gated area, but still, I mean, it's just a bizarre documentary. So, well, thank you so much for sharing your mini trip fail, Tali. I hope this helps some people steer clear of Westgate Lakes if they're booking a trip to Orlando. And if they do book a Westgate anywhere in the country, just know that you need to avoid the timeshare meetings. And for our final Trip Fails minisode, we have the Great Wolf Lodge Gone Wrong with my guest, Laura. This is Laura's third time back on the Trip Tales podcast. She was also my guest on episode 3 about Dollywood and episode 18 about Disney's Wilderness Lodge, not to be confused with the Great Wolf Lodge, which we are talking about today. So welcome back to the podcast, Laura. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's do a rapid fire get to know you. So remind everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
So I live in the southern part of New Jersey, as southern as you can get. I live in a coastal community, a shore town, lots of tourism. I teach there also in Ocean City, New Jersey. I have two boys who are currently 7, a first grader, and 3.5, a pre-K. And I also live with my husband, and we try to do as much traveling as we can throughout the year.
And if you guys could see Laura right now, she is taking this Zoom in her classroom on her lunch break because she's amazing and fits these in during her lunch break. So we are so thankful for you being a teacher and for joining the podcast on your lunch break.
Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Before we dive into your mini trip fail, I have to share my beef with Great Wolf Lodge real quick. So I was actually really thrilled when you said you had a trip fail about Great Wolf Lodge because I have reached out to them corporately probably a dozen times over the last 12 years and very formal emails, like pitching them on I'd love to showcase any of the locations. Like a lot of times I'll be going to Arizona or there's a new one in Naples, Florida, where I'm down there a lot. And every time they just like so brush me off. They tell me I don't have enough followers, my engagement isn't high enough. And so it's a little bit of a like, well, look at me now, Great Wolf Lodge. I've got thousands of podcast listeners. You wouldn't give me the time of day. And I get that I don't have like a million followers on Instagram, but I feel like at least for the last few years, it would have been the perfect place to showcase a Great Wolf Lodge with my family. And I know I can just go and book it easy peasy, 100%. But part of me is like, if I'm going to go and I'm going to film it all and share it all, I would love like some sort of like kickback. And they just dismiss me like you're not good enough, Kelsey. So I'm like,
Oh.
let's do a little trip fail about them. Okay. So set the scene for us. When and why was your family going to visit Great Wolf Lodge?
Okay, so this was August of 2021. And I had my son in June. So I had a brand new baby. And we usually do a big summer trip, which obviously we weren't doing that summer because I had just given birth. So we found a little VRBO in the Poconos and we were staying there for a couple days. And we had one day of the most torrential, consistent rain I have ever seen. So I will preface with I did not stay in the hotel. We had stayed in a VRBO and they offer day passes to use all the amenities that are at Great Wolf Lodge. So we had gotten a day pass.
For those that aren't familiar with Poconos, it's a mountain area in Pennsylvania, kind of like a rest and retreat, lots of VRBOs and cabins and that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah. It's primarily a ski area. And they have a couple lakes and that sort of thing. So we were just kind of going up to get away for a couple days. It's not far from us here in New Jersey. I think it's like under a 3-hour drive. So just a little like quick getaway. It was kind of the most we could do at that point.
And how old was your oldest son at that point?
So my oldest son was just shy of 4. He would have been 4 in November. So
Okay, so quick getaway. And then were you already planning on going to Great Wolf Lodge or did you add it on because of the rain and you just needed something to do?
yeah, we added it on because of the rain. I mean, we had always been interested in it, so we also thought it was a good way to kind of go experience it and see if it fit our vibe and fit what we were kind of into.
Okay, so tell us about showing up to the Great Wolf Lodge.
At this time in 2021, now I will say I've been corrected on this in a couple families who travel Facebook groups and stuff. Some things may have changed. So,
well, I
I'm
will
just telling
say that they did a big renovation in October 2023. I was just looking it up. However, I will share that all the most recent reviews are very in line with the types of things I think you're going to say, even after the renovation. So.
Yes. Yes. So, and I think also some of their policies and some things have changed since I visited.
Okay.
So at the time of my visit, you could buy a day pass, which allowed you to get into the water park when it opened. It was either 9 or 10 a.m. if you were staying in the hotel, you could enter the water park on your check-in day at 1 p.m.
Okay.
So little kids, we were up bright and early, rip raring, ready to go in our bathing suits, all that. So we were there at water park open. I don't remember if it was 9 or 10. When we arrived, we came through the front. There's some people milling around entered through the lobby. There's some people milling around, not really much happening. And we followed the elevators and all that to the water park, where we then entered, like, it was like Disney rope drop, like a line to get into this water park. And we were like, oh, okay, here we go.
Race to the water slides.
Race to the water slides. So the doors open, and like you could just see that, you could picture the scene. Everyone rushes to get a chair. And here I am with my husband and a almost 4-year-old and a brand new baby strapped to a baby carrier. So we wanted somewhere to sit because I was nursing, all the things. So we found chairs, which were like totally inconvenient, somewhere far away, because it's just not in my nature to mow people down to get a chair at a water park. And we got in and we got settled. And my 3-year-old and my husband went off, and, me and the baby kind of waited around the pool areas and kind of watched and that sort of thing.
I know it's been changed, maybe. I mean, I think the rooms were updated and maybe there were some slides added and stuff, but the general consensus in the reviews, I will say one I just read said this place is a dump. So I was like, wow, that was just like yesterday. So what was kind of the vibe of the water park? Does it feel old? Does it feel tired?
It does feel a little, the smell of chlorine was like overwhelming. And it could have been, like I had a brand new baby with me, and here I am in this like greenhouse of chlorine. But I do remember just feeling like, oh my gosh, I've been to indoor water parks before. I've been to outdoor water parks. This smell was like so pungent. It was just overwhelming. And the other thing was, when we had first checked in and gotten wristbands or whatever we needed to get in, like the very first Great Wolf employee that we came across could not have been more miserable. Just not a smile. My kids are excited. My kid was excited, ready to go in. Not a smile, nothing. Like wristband on, and we were on our way. And then same with so I remember we had first gotten in there, we'd gotten chairs and everything. And my son had done something. I mean, I'm a little bit of a helicopter mom, and I was newly postpartum, which probably intensified it. But my son was not even 4 at the time. I just remember him like going up one of the slides, and the guy was like giving me a hard time because I had walked him up and my husband was waiting at the bottom for him. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna like let my 4-year-old all the way up here by himself. I'm like, no, he's not even 4 yet. So like the lifeguards weren't very kind and helpful, and like, you got to like kind of help your kid onto the slide at that age, that sort of thing. And he was like, you can't be up here. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm
Oh
going
my
back down.
gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah.
So generally, nobody wanted to be at Great Wolf Lodge. The
No.
workers
No, no
or
one.
the
No, no.
patrons.
Yeah. So we hung out at the water park for till about probably like lunchtime, 12:30, 1 o'clock. And I'm telling you, when that door opened at 1 p.m., it was like another rope drop moment of just people pouring in. And my son was still little at that point, so we were still napping and stuff. So we were kind of done with the water park. And by like 1:15, we'd kind of been like, oh, maybe we'll skip nap today. And it was like mobbed. And I was just like, nope, we're good. We'll kind of go get lunch. And then they had some other things to do, an arcade. There was a Build-A-Bear, everything. So we were going to stay in the water park. There's a little area to get food, and the line was so long, you couldn't get anything. I mean, kind of a mom fail. I probably should have planned ahead and gotten in line before a million other people, but
Yeah,
you live and you
whatever.
learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that the food's not good. The lines are really long. And like the only saving grace is that there's a Dunkin' Donuts, but I don't know if that's in the water park or in the hotel.
It's right outside, but that line was just as long too, because I
Yeah.
was just gonna like, oh, I'll just get him a quick donut while we like
Yeah.
figure out this lunch situation. Nope, that wasn't happening either. And every person that I came across, I don't think I saw a single smile on an employee's
Oh,
face. It was it was unlike anything I've ever seen before. And we're a little bit of Disney people, so maybe we're a little jaded in that way, but I don't think so. I mean, like I said in the beginning of the episode, we live in a shore town. Tourism is all we know. We've all worked hospitality jobs, and I'm like, no, I don't think I was ever that miserable. Maybe a day or
yes.
two, but no.
And like miserable service and then being body to body in a
Yeah.
hot, humid indoor
Yeah.
water park that smells like chlorine. And then especially with like a 4-year-old or a little kid, when
Yeah.
those big kids run in and it is just like,
Yes.
there's like so much splashing and roughhousing in the water. And
Yeah.
I can just picture it.
Yeah. And they also had like a wave pool too, which I don't know. I'm sure it was just my son's age, but I was like very uncomfortable with the wave pool, felt very intense to me. And I'm like seeing people get mowed over and like, little heads bobbing out of the water. And I'm like, nope, you're not going back in there. So we had gotten out and I don't know, we eventually found, oh, there was a Ben and Jerry's in there. That's what we did. We had ice cream for lunch because it was the only place without a line. So
I'm
we
sure
had
your kid loved that though. He's like, jackpot, this is the best day
yes.
ever.
Yes, this actually this whole episode was probably be the opposite for him. If I
Yeah.
think this is the best day ever,
Yeah.
but we had Ben and Jerry's for lunch because it was the only thing without a line. They also had like some sit down restaurants, but again, lines everywhere I
Yeah.
looked. I was like, what? Where are all these people coming from? I didn't see anyone in the lobby this morning. And then we made our way to the arcade, which was, an arcade, overpriced, loud, overwhelming. You already have
General
it.
arcade.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I just spent $50 and they came away with like a rubber ducky.
Yes, exactly. And you just left like you know how indoor water parks just have that like hum about them, and you're like, you
Yes.
leave and you're like, oh, it's quiet now, and then you go
Yeah.
into the arcade and you're like, oh, I'm overstimulated again. Okay,
Yes.
so we did that for a little bit, killed some time, and then they had some other stuff to do too, but at that point I was kind of like,
Well, there's
uh,
always that like wizardy wand thing I see people doing online that seems like I said, I have looked into this trip many times. I've looked at the rooms that look like little bear dens and the kids can sleep in
yes,
bunk beds. I've looked at so much stuff.
yeah,
Never booked it. That's my bad. Also they dismissed me and me trying to work with them. But I always was like, this feels like a lot to do once I get there. Like we've got to run around the hotel and do the wand thing and
yeah.
figure out all the scavenger hunts. And I'm like, this feels like too much to do.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is very like there's a lot of sensory overload happening. Everywhere you turn, there's like something going on, and someone is running around with a wand. So there's also like obviously a ton of merchandise areas and stuff. So we ended up at Build-A-Bear, and that was kind of our like, all right, well, what if we go do Build-A-Bear and then we'll, head out for the day and you can take a nap. So it was a quick little jaunt, but I'm very happy that I did it that way because I saw like this is not for us. If this is what the hotel looks like, I imagine the rooms are a very similar vibe and like it just doesn't really fit what we're accustomed to.
Yeah. I went to a similar place recently in the Smoky Mountains. Again, I didn't stay there. I think it's called Wilderness of the Smokies. You've probably come across it as
Oh,
you've looked up your
yes.
Smoky Mountain trips. And we were there in the winter in a cabin. And one day we just needed to kill time. Similar situation to you. So we booked a day pass at the Wilderness of the Smokies. Same vibe, but I would actually recommend it. But again, it's like that indoor, busy, body to body, hot, humid. But there are a lot of water slides. It kills time, but I'm also like, oh my gosh, what am I exposing my children to if they like open their mouth in this water?
Yeah.
Um, but just being there and then like the lobby, the carpet's all damp because everybody's
Yeah.
walking around with like bare
Yeah.
feet. And like
Hmm.
I got the same vibe that was just like, okay, I could kill some time here maybe, but I am not going to book a room here ever because it's almost like you just never escape that like you said, that hum and buzz of this like water park
Yes.
arcade world. You need
Yeah.
like your Wilderness Lodge episode, which everybody
Right.
should go listen to. Laura talks about, Disney World's Wilderness Lodge, how it feels like a retreat. Like you leave the chaos of the fun and the parks and you
Hmm.
get to relax a little bit. I don't think you get to relax at a Great Wolf Lodge.
No, I don't think so. And I've heard that as a review too, that like a lot of people, especially those with like younger kids who have an earlier bedtime, or maybe you're trying to fit a nap in, that wand game is kind of played on all floors of the hotel.
Oh, kids are running around
Yeah.
everywhere.
So I think it's just kind of like a free for all. And I've heard that as a big complaint too, is that like your kid was woken up from a nap from someone running around outside or something, or you're trying to get to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and you have that going on outside your room. And the other thing I noticed was more lines as we were leaving. It was like I said, and again, I know someone's going to come after you in the comments and be like, that's not
Whatever.
like that
That's the
anymore.
best part of
But
this trip fails thing. People
yes,
get real crazy about the trip fails.
yes. But when I was there, you couldn't use the water park until 1. So people would come at 1, check in, and then go use the water park. So the lines at 1 p.m., like around the time that we were leaving, were just crazy to check in.
Oh yeah, to
Yeah.
even get into your room and everything.
Yeah. Now I will say, like, I've noticed that sound waves where you visit is kind of a similar vibe, but like maybe a little bit elevated.
No, I would
So
say
like,
a lot of it elevated.
yeah.
Sound
Yeah. So
waves is
I
like
think like,
amazing. I don't want to have anyone have like a bad. We are obsessed with sound waves. It is like indoor water park, but everything is like white and clean and
yes.
like plants growing up and down the walls, good food, fun music because it's Nashville, indoor, outdoor, but you can also just do the
Yeah.
indoor if you're this is at Gaylord Opryland Hotel in Nashville. And we love it, but you do have to pay extra for the water park. Whereas at Great Wolf Lodge, I think pretty much if you're staying there, it's
Yeah.
a package deal. If you
Right.
stay at the Opryland Hotel, you do have to pay extra money to get a Soundwaves ticket, but it is so worth it. It's like the best water park I've ever been to, and I do not love a water park.
Yeah. So I think like as an alternative, something like that on an elevated level or in the regional area where I'm from, sometimes we go to Hershey Lodge in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which
Okay.
has like a very small indoor water park, but the employees are like Disney level employees. Like everyone is so nice. Everything is so clean. There's like good options for food. There's good activities for kids. So I think if you're looking for something like Great Wolf, but maybe this episode is like, no, I don't think I want to try there. I would look into Hershey Lodge if I were you. If you're in like the, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware regional area and you're looking for a similar vibe, but maybe something that fits your style a little bit better, that's kind of what we've gravitated towards now.
Awesome. Good to know. And then, yeah, if you're in the Southeast, Midwest area, Opryland Soundwaves is a great getaway, especially in the winter if you just want to do that water park thing indoors. Awesome, Laura. You're amazing for joining us from your classroom. I hope you have a great rest of your day and that your students are so well behaved.
Thank you so much. It was good to talk to you again.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.